One last problem for Appendix 6A. We're going to look at problem 6A-7. So here we're told to refer back to problem 610, but in problem 610 we did it the exact same questions, but we used the weighted average method. Now we're going to do it again based on using the FIFO method. So I'm going to actually go back because that question actually has the information that we need. Hold on. 610. So here we go. Here's the information from 610. So first, equivalent units of production. So for FIFO again, we take work in process at the beginning, 50,000. So 50,000 units. They are already 75% complete with respect to materials, which means there's 25% left to complete this month. Conversion, the 50,000 units are 30% complete with respect to conversion. So that means there's 70% to finish this month. So that's here, the 25% and the 70, 100 minus 30. Then the other part then is what's units completed, well, started and completed during the period. So started was 430,000, but that's what they started, but at the end of the period there were still 100,000 left in work in process. So 430 minus 100, and they're 100% complete, so 330. Then your ending work in process, there were 100,000 units. 60% of the work was completed that period for materials and 40% for conversion. Now I want to just quickly show you the difference between that and the weighted average. So for weighted average, we would just take, we wouldn't take anything with beginning work in process. And for units completed that period, it would be just units transferred to next department. So completed and transferred out, 380. That's what we would have taken here. Whereas under the FIFO method, we don't take the 380. We take that there was 430 started, 100 left in work in process, so the difference is what was started and completed that period. So they distinguish between what was done in a prior period. So this was already completed in a prior period. The only work that was left to complete on this period is except the 25% and 70%. And this was started during the period, but this is what's left at the end of the period. So the difference in that is what was started and completed that period. Whereas under weighted average, they just completed and transferred out. If it was completed, they don't care if it was partially completed from the period before and the ones that were started this period. It was just, it encompasses everything that was completed that period. All right, so then we have to work out the cost per equivalent unit. So now again, cost added during the period. So this is here. Cost added during the period, 425.5 and 145. And they divide it by the equivalent units that we worked out here to get the cost per equivalent unit. Under the weighted average, it would have been not just the 425 and 145. It would have been the costs that were of the beginning work in process plus the cost added during the period. So we would have had a different total for one, and then that would be divided by the equivalent units from A in this question, but we have a different number of equivalent units here, which obviously gives us a different cost per equivalent unit. Again, because under this FIFO method, we only take into account what happened during that period. Determine the total cost of ending work in process and total cost of units transferred to the next period. So we have to see the next page. So we'll go down here. And just let me slide it over a little bit. Okay. So we start off with ending work in process inventory. So equivalent ending work in process inventory. Equivalent units of production, 60 and 40. That would have come from here, from 60 and 40, from our ending. Cost per equivalent units, but we worked out here. So the cost of ending work in process inventory, then you just multiply them. So you have a total for materials, a total for conversion, and then the total. Units transferred out. Cost in beginning work in process inventory. So this here was here when at the beginning. Cost to complete the units in beginning work in process inventory. So equivalent units of production required to complete the beginning inventory. That was up here. Again, we take into account that this much was done already. 75% was complete. We only have to do the remainder. So the 12, 5, and the 35. Multiply it by the cost per equivalent unit, same as here, that we just calculated in step B. And then you multiply them and you get to the cost to complete the units in beginning inventory. Then we have to get the costs of the units started and completed during the period. So again, started and completed during the period was the 430 that they started minus the 100 that is in ending inventory, so 330, multiplied by the same cost per equivalent unit, and you would get your cost of units started and completed. So cost of units transferred out would be cost of beginning work in process, cost to complete the beginning work in process inventory this period, and the cost to do the units that were started and completed. And again, if I go back here, so ending work in process, it's the same 60 and 40. It's just the cost per equivalent unit is going to be different under both. And then units completed and transferred out, under weighted average, they just take the total units transferred to 380, whereas here we did it up above 2. We break out what's left to complete in beginning inventory and what was started and completed this period. And the last part, number 4, reconcile. So let's go back up. So again, it's costs to be accounted for. So we have to account for, this was in work in process at the beginning, so the 45.5 and the 25, which is 70,500. Then we added 425.5 and 145 that period. So total cost 641. Where did those costs go? Cost of ending work in process inventory, it's down, part C, 77.4 here. Cost of units transferred out is the total here, 563. So we're off here, 649.33. That's due to rounding. So if you had used decimal places and such, you would have got a much more accurate answer if we had done that throughout, but because we didn't, we're off by rounding. So it's important then to understand the differences between the weighted average and the FIFO method and know how to complete the same steps using both.